How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. Today we're taking a look at the injured list, and the injured list basically could field an above-average playoff team. That's how bad the injuries are for the Yankees right now. Most of our bullpen, or at least it feels like a lot of our bullpen arms, are on the IL. We have 3 premium pitchers on the IL. We have an elite center fielder on the IL. We have an elite slugger on the IL. We have so many players who could be making a tremendous impact for this Yankee team right now on the injured list. And I want to talk about them. I want to talk about their progress, what the timeline for return are for a lot of these players. But ultimately, we're seeing the consequences of these injuries right now. Even Josh Donaldson, the hamstring injury, honestly, keep him in Double-A forever. He's not much of an asset to this team. DJ LeMahieu at third base has been tremendous. I'd rather have Oswald Peraza in there anyway. Almost came up with a couple of really nice defensive plays yesterday. Was just short because he's not used to playing second base. So that is a position he's trying to get a grasp of. But right now, I feel pretty down on the Yankees because of these issues. They have a lot of supplementary pieces getting at bats. You saw yesterday the bottom of that order, IKF, Hicks, and Higashioka was one for the ages. That's a 3 hitting spot right there that I hope to God I never have to see again. Hicks, his at-bats are non-competitive. 75% of his bats, he doesn't even look like he knows what he's doing up there. The other 25% are outs. At some point, they have to make a decision with him. Like, he does not belong on this team anymore. The boos, sure, they probably are impacting him a little bit mentally, but the reality is that his swing decisions, he doesn't even have a plan. He's going up there, 2 strikes are already by him, and then he just doesn't swing or just whiffs at the third one, and it's really tough to watch. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on these injuries right now? The fact the Yankees are really having to supplement a lot of their primary positions with backups and reserves. This is definitely impacting the team, but at least we're getting the injuries out of the way early. I guess you can make that argument, but how you do today, my friend, anyway?
Yeah, no. Yesterday's game was kind of infuriating to watch because the Yankees had multiple opportunities to go out there and take that win, right? You don't get a great start from Clark Schmidt, which is obviously that's the primary reason the Yankees lost. But you felt like the starting pitcher for the Angels, you felt like he gave the Yankees a lot of opportunities. He was walking a lot of people. The Yankees had quite a few opportunities with bases loaded to not just put up runs, but to really break into that game. And that's what the Angels did. The Angels were able to get their runs in bunches multiple times, and the Yankees just weren't able to do that. But a lot of their injuries have played a role in that, right? Now, obviously, Carlos Rodon and Luis Severino being out means that you have to start Clark Schmidt, who is clearly struggling as a starter. You'll see him throw a couple of really nasty pitches, and that'll work in the bullpen, right? 1 or 2 inning sample sizes, but it's not going to work over 4, 5, 6 innings. That's not Clark Schmidt. And if that's not Clark Schmidt, that's fine, right? If you can get a couple more solid starts from Brito, if you can keep Herman rolling in the direction he's rolling after that Minnesota start, which I think was a huge confidence booster for him, you can live with having just one of those 2 guys back. But without both of them, your rotation's really decimated. Your rotation's really not in a great spot. And your bullpen gets a little weaker from that. Now, the Yankee bullpen has done their job lately, but you imagine they're going to get a little more tired as they have to cover for these short starts. So, if you look at the injured list, they have a lot of guys that they're going to need going forward. Even Bader, you mentioned Donaldson's kind of useless. Donaldson's probably at least going to give me a better at-bat than IKF or Hicks can at this point, right? For me, at least, it's just about getting the guys who are not supposed to be on that field, which, no disrespect to IKF, no disrespect to Aaron Hicks, but they don't look like they belong on the field right now. And end of the day, you need to just have as much depth as possible. So Donaldson's I'm not as high on him as Bader, but Bader 100% is going to be a big addition. The injured list is it's a mess right now.
It absolutely is. So I'm going to go through each individual player that currently is on there and kind of give you an idea of the timetable for return. So Giancarlo Stanton, as I referenced earlier, has a 4 to 6 week timetable for return. Now, I would ebb on the latter side of that timeline. We're looking more at like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, because the inevitable setback that happens to him when he's getting back into shape at the minors and his rehab assignment is going to happen. The leg injuries have been awful for him, and they're not going away. This is just life with Giancarlo at this point in time. Of course, it always happens like this. What is it with players that just come to the Yankees and immediately become injury prone? Even if they weren't before, suddenly they're injury prone and they don't want to play and they don't, it's just this or that. It's just, I don't know if it's bad luck. I don't know if it's the Yankees acquiring players later on in their careers when they are becoming more injury prone. But it really sucks to just experience all around. Stanton's leg injuries have been awful, and they have resulted in last year one of the worst stat lines of his career. And he hit 31 homers despite that. So it's pretty incredible when you realize that he had a sub 30% on base rate and still hit 31 homers in basically half a season. When he's in the lineup and he's consistent, he's one of the best hitters in baseball, and that's objectively true. But the question is, when is he going to be in the lineup if he ever is consistently? So kind of sucks, but something that we have to live with. 4 to 6 weeks, probably the latter of that timeline is what we should expect. Luis Severino, he's progressing quite well, and I want to stick on Severino for a minute here because he's someone that probably will return within the next couple of weeks and can make an impact for us. So he obviously had that right lat strain. He's expected to return later this month or in early May. He's getting a couple of simulation innings under his belt. He's actually expected to face off against Harrison Bader in a couple days. What do you think that Luis Severino's role is going to be upon his return? Obviously, he's a starting pitcher for us, but do you think that he can kind of replicate what he did last year, over 100 inning sample size? I don't think he's going to break that, or at least he's not going to break it by much. He may hover around that. But how do you mitigate his fatigue? Like, how do you mitigate his workload to make sure that he is healthy for the rest of the year once he does make this return?
Yeah, so I think a big part of that's going to be just managing his innings early on. Don't push the pitch count too much, how he builds himself back up. I imagine the Yankees are going to take it a little bit slower. I don't think they're going to just say, all right, you threw a live BP, here's one rehab start, go get him, Tiger. They're going to have to give him some rest. They're going to have to build him up slowly. You'd rather wait for them to be 100% rather than, go out and force them to pitch and then let them get hurt again or be ineffective and then eventually get hurt again, right? The Yankees, I think, had a smart approach last year with Severino, which was when he got hurt, they really nested that injury because the Yankees had a big advantage in the division. They felt like they could hold their own, and Severino came back and he was the best version of himself in terms of velocity and movement and location. And for Severino, he's going to come back and he's going to have to be, just better than Clark Schmidt or better than, that's really it. Just be better than Clark Schmidt. And Schmidt's been really bad this year, so it's not hard to pass that bar, right? If he's able to be a solid number 3, your rotation gets better, you get a little more consistency. That 5th day that you're getting a rough start from Clark Schmidt and having to push your bullpen now becomes a game where, your bullpen gets to rest a little bit more. You get a really good start. Your offense gets, support there. Again, the Yankees don't have Stanton right now, so that's a big blow to the offense. They're not going to score as many runs as they were with Stanton in that lineup, unless someone else is able to step up and be a hero here. So the pitching staff now becomes even more important. And we're probably going to get Severino or Rodon back before Stan gets back, I imagine. So the pitching being good is going to be important with the step back the offense is going to take.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pitching obviously is prevalent. We have 3 primary starters on the IL right now. The next one being Carlos Rodon, who is still dealing with that left elbow strain and now has back stiffness, and the back injury has popped up. The one thing that I read recently that really just grinded my gears was that when the Yankees wanted to go and get Rodon from the Giants, obviously signed him in free agency, they went to the Chicago White Sox and said, what should we expect from Rodon? And they say, great guy, great clubhouse, person to have. And the one thing you got to be, willing to accept the fact is that he's going to be injured, and he's going to get injured a lot, and you're going to have to deal with that, and you're going to have to just ride it out. And a lot of people were very surprised that Brian Cashman gave him a 6-year contract. Now, Carlos Rodon is one of the best pitchers in baseball, one of the best lefty pitchers in the game when he's healthy. The question is, another one that, we are wondering is, when is he going to be healthy? When is he going to make an impact? Is he going to be injured like this every single year, just like Stanton was? What is he? I think he's 29 or 30 years old, Rodon. So, you're asking a player who's aging to hold up over the next 6 seasons, and he's making about $29 million per year. Are you confident that he's going to return and be fine? Like, are you feeling like, this is just a blip in the radar? He's been good for 2 years. He's been relatively healthy. This is just an anomaly, or do you think this is kind of like setting the stage for a much bigger issue that the Yankees simply can't get away from, which is getting players and acquiring players who just cannot get healthy and maintain that health?
Yeah, so I think 140 innings, if you average that and you get really good production, and assuming he's healthy towards the postseason time, that's all I really care about, right? If this year Carlos Rodon pitches 140 innings and he is absolutely dominant in those 140 innings and he goes out, he pitches his butt off in the World Series, the investment to me has been made, right? We knew what we were getting with Rodon. You knew you were not getting a guy who's going to toss 200 innings a year, who's going to make 32 starts. This is not a Garrett Cole type workhorse, right? And that actually makes you appreciate Garrett Cole a little bit more, because if you look at all these pitchers around the league, everyone gets hurt except for Garrett, right? That it seems to be that Garrett is the guy who's the most durable, and that's something that's really important, especially in this pitching staff, right? We're talking about Severino, we're talking about Rodon. We had the injury scare with Cortez earlier in the year, but Rodon is not someone with that track record. His track record is that he keeps getting hurt, and you have to anticipate that, right? And, the Yankees being careful with him is a good thing. I don't think pushing it is going to do anyone any favors. If you don't have Rodon in the postseason, then that completely eliminates the purpose of having him. You have him for the postseason. The Yankees tried to trade for him last trade deadline because they wanted him for the postseason. Everyone knows what he's capable of when he's healthy, but as you mentioned, it's a matter of how healthy is he going to be. We can't really answer that question right now, but I'll say it again: 140 innings. Give me 140 really good innings and get me to the postseason healthy, and I'll be happy.
I mean, look, if he makes an impact in the postseason, we're going to forget all about this anyway. And then you mentioned Harrison Bader earlier. Bader's actually set to face off against Severino in a live batting session this week. So that should spark hope for his return. He's going to probably start a rehab assignment. But Boone said that he will probably need a couple of days or maybe a week or two in the minors just to get kind of used to things, because he didn't really participate in spring training at all, so he needs a lot of time. But Bader making good progress. That's definitely a good one of the best defensive center fielders in the game, and it's going to give a really big boost to the bottom of this hitting order, this batting order, and ultimately, we need his support. IKF in center field, God help me, I cannot watch this anymore. I can't watch Hicks anymore. It's just you might as well turn the TV off when the final three batters are up for the Yankees. That's ultimately the truth at this point. Is when those guys are up, there's nothing to be happy about. Look, Higashioka actually didn't look awful yesterday. He had a single, did some decent things, but Hicks is just a walk-in strikeout right now. He's just a walk-in freaking liability. I mean, he walks a couple times every now and then, but he just doesn't make any good contact. And then, IKF, when he does make contact, is a weak little dribbler. I think he did have a hit yesterday at the very least. So, the the bottom of the order is a big problem for them, and the injuries make it a lot more prevalent, but Bader should help a lot. Now, there's a couple of bullpen arms coming up right now, Jonathan Loaisiga and Lou Trevino. These guys are going to come back at some point. Loaisiga healthy is one of the best bullpen arms in the AL East. Lou Trevino, after he was acquired in the Frankie Montas deal last year, was awesome. He was so good for us, and that sinker was great, but he's dealing with a pretty significant injury right now, the right elbow ligament sprain. So he's expected to start throwing some bullpen sessions this week, but he's definitely still a while away. Maybe he's a month away from a potential return. Loaisiga, on the other hand, he's out for a while as well with, the newfound elbow inflammation. So definitely not ideal for Loaisiga. He's had a lot of injuries over the last year. But how important do you think these two guys are, Loaisiga and Lou Trevino, to the bullpen when they do return? How much value do you think they're going to bring? Because right now we're really asking a lot of guys like Ian Hamilton, who's been pretty damn good for what it's worth, Greg Weiser, and some guys that maybe otherwise wouldn't be on this 26-man roster if they were available now.
Yeah, when we discussed our mailbag, which we're doing on Mondays, of course, we discussed, whether the Yankees have the best bullpen in baseball or not. And I said, in their current state with their injuries, they currently do not, but they've pitched extremely well. And having Loaisiga back, having Lou Trevino back, I think that's when you enter, hey, maybe we have the best bullpen in baseball status, right? If you look at the guys they have in their bullpen, are all of them high leverage guys necessarily? No, but do they have guys with gross stuff? Yes, right? Jimmy Cordero throwing 98-mile-an-hour sinkers by guys. That's nasty stuff. Albert Abreu's slider looks a lot better right now. He looks gross. Greg Weiser was able to get a big out to stop the bleeding there. And at the end of the day, you really feel like this team has a bullpen capable of a championship. This team's always had a really good bullpen, right? They haven't had to pay an Aroldis Chapman or a Zach Britton type contract to get to this bullpen either. And Loaisiga was the guy who I think at least last year was our best reliever in the postseason. And I think that means something because he's someone who knows how to handle high leverage. He throws strikes. We know that sinker is really hard to hit. And then Lou Trevino last year, very underappreciated, but he had a sub-2 ERA with the Yankees. He was excellent, and he also was excellent in the postseason. So, you get two arms like that back. You feel like those are they're two guys who can close a game for you if need be. Both those guys did close games for the Yankees last year at one point or another. You add that onto a team that, Clay Holmes is struggling, so one of your main right-handed ground ball guys is in a little bit of turmoil. Loaizaga and Trevino would definitely help ease pressure off of Holmes. And, of course, Kings pitched well to start the year. Wandy, Ron Marinaccio. They have guys. It's just a matter of, hey, let's get our high-leverage guys back because the talent's there. They just don't have the same level of. The Yankees are self-admittedly not going to trust Albert Abreu the way they'll trust Jonathan Loaizaga.
Yeah, that's very true. And, Albert Abreu has been really good to start the year. But again, like you said, those high leverage moments, you want Johnny in there. You do not want Albert Abreu facing off against some of the best hitters in baseball when it comes to a postseason situation. So we do have a lot of time for that. Scott Efros, kind of tells the story tells itself. Tommy John surgery, we're probably not going to see him this year, and that's okay. He has basically no service time accumulated, so we have him for 5 years or multiple seasons until he becomes a free agent. He's going to be a really important arm for us in the future. Frankie Montas, another dud, and Cashman's already basically coughed that one up as a dud. He said, that didn't work out for us. And that was one of the more frustrating ones because we didn't know this until recently that Frankie Montas was not healthy when they acquired him. He was not 100%. And he even went out and said that. He said, I was not healthy. My shoulder was bothering me. I thought I could pitch through it. I don't understand why the Yankees leveraged one of their best starting pitcher, or rather one of their best starting pitching prospects into a player that was not 100% healthy and, has had shoulder injuries in the past. And, at the time, the move made a lot of sense. And Ryan, you and I were very big advocates for it. We were totally down, but we did not know that he was already hurt. If you could go back in time right now and knew that Frankie Montas was not 100%, he knew that, the medical staff knew that, but they made the trade anyway. What do you think about that? Do you think you still would have done it, or do you think that maybe you would have thought twice?
Yeah, if I knew the situation with Montas' health a little bit more, there's no way I would have traded for him. Now, thankfully, the Yankees haven't given up anyone that has made them regret the trade too much so far. And there is some time for Montas. Technically, he should be back at some point during the season, so he'll get some time to prove that. He can give at least the Yankees at least a little bit of value, right? Even a strong postseason as a reliever. If he's able to get some big outs, is the trade necessarily what you wanted it to be? No. But would it still at least help you win a championship? Absolutely. So if you're Frankie Montas, you look at it from the sense of, hey, you can't change what happened in the past. We can't change the fact the Yankees acquired someone who was hurt. But what they can do is try to get as much value as possible now, right? So again, I wouldn't have made that trade had I known about the injury things. Obviously you just go out and either pivot for another starter or maybe you push harder for Pablo Lopez, who we got to see Sunday. Who I know Garrett Cole was incredible, but Pablo Lopez wasn't that bad either. So there are different roads you could have taken, but hindsight's 2020. I didn't know about the medical situation at the time. I'm not going to get too upset about it, but there's at least a little bit of time for Montas to try to make this deal right, because the Yankees did not send over any prospects that are performing at all with the Oakland Athletics.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a good point. So, you look at it in hindsight, it's 2020, obviously, we would have known, but they did know. And that's kind of what frustrates me is they knew they had this information, but they did it anyway. Another one that really frustrated me was Tommy Kahnle. We invested a 2-year, $11.5 million salary into him, and he hasn't even sniffed the field. Hasn't even gotten close to sniffing the grass, okay? He has a biceps tendonitis injury that has already happened to him. And now we're sitting here waiting for him to return once again. I don't understand what the obsession is with signing and acquiring injury-prone players, guys that are gonna miss time. They are gonna get injured one way or another. Something is gonna happen to them. This one really frustrated me because this was our primary bullpen acquisition, and Kahnle's a great locker room guy, and when he's healthy, really solid pitcher, good strikeout pitcher, has given up a lot of home runs in the past. It's been a qualm of his, but I will say this is that the best ability is availability sometimes, and Kahnle is never available. He pitched 12.2 innings last year, and that was the most he had pitched in multiple seasons, and that justified nearly $6 million per year. Now, I know bullpen arms can get pretty expensive, and Kahnle is a decent arm, but I just feel like we could have invested that money more appropriately. I feel like that was a bad decision, and it's kind of proving to be that. What are your thoughts on Kahnle? He'll make an impact maybe down the stretch, but I have no faith in him staying healthy for at least, the back end of the season. It definitely concerns me and it worries me, and I just don't really understand the logic behind consistently getting guys who have injury histories that have proven they are unreliable.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You would like to see him show you that he can stay healthy before you're going to start relying on him to stay healthy. End of the day, this situation has not turned out very well for the Yankees. Even if you get him back during the year, you're worried, as you mentioned, that he may get hurt at any point in time. You're worried as to how that'll look like next year when he's another year older, right? And considering the state of this bullpen right now, they could have really used that acquisition of Tommy Canley right now. They could really use a Tommy Canley. They could probably have really benefited in certain games where, it's a tight-knit game, or they have to push a starter a little bit too long, or, you just think of that game against the Twins where they go to Clay Holmes, and, maybe if they had a little bit more available in the bullpen, they could have been a little more aggressive when taking out Holmes or any situation like that. End of the day, I don't think that I'm going to judge this signing just yet, but so far it's not looking good. And as you mentioned, the trust for Canley to be healthy is gone, and that's kind of an important thing to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there is one guy, though, that I do want to discuss that you really like, and that's Luis Gil. This is a pretty awesome pitcher, and we saw he had some really good starts last year, specifically that first one. His velocity, tremendous. This is a really good pitcher with a lot of upside the Yankees are high on. Luis Gil, obviously, having Tommy John surgery last year puts a big wrench in his utilization in 2023, but they expect him to be back during the second half of 2023. So that's a positive. What do you think his role is going to be when he does return? Because, he's going to have to ramp up. It's going to take him quite a while, but he has a lot of promise, and I'd love to see the Yankees get him some opportunities.
Yeah, so in my opinion, Luis Gil probably ends up being a reliever just because I don't know if the starting reps will be there for him. But he can be an absolutely lethal reliever. We know the fastball, it has plenty of life, plenty of movement, plenty of spin. It's an excellent pitch. His slider is a hammer slider. It's got some sweep. It's a pretty good pitch as well. I wonder if he learns a cutter, perhaps. Maybe that'll help him get more swings out of the strike zone. He's tried to tinker with a changeup. I don't know if that's necessarily the pitch for him. But realistically, when you look at his stuff, it's just gross. He throws absolutely nasty pitches. He's got an electric arm. And if you look at this bullpen, if you look at how we can fit into this bullpen and how the Yankees have been able to take arms that haven't worked out as starters and made them into relievers, I feel pretty confident that Luis Gil can come back midseason and be a serious weapon for this team out of the bullpen.
Absolutely. But guys, that kind of wraps up this episode, taking a look at all of the players that are on the IL. And just to recap, Stanton, Severino, Rodon, Bader, Loaisiga, Trevino, Efros, Montas, Canley, and Gil. You're looking at 3 starting pitchers on any team. Any team. You're looking at multiple high-end relief pitchers on any team. And you're looking at one of the best sluggers in the game and an elite defensive center fielder. You could freaking field a playoff team with our IL right now, which is also a good thing in perspective, because eventually we're going to get 95% of these players back and they're going to be in the mix. They're going to be competing. They're going to be playing, but we have to wait and we have to survive until then. And who knows when that's going to be. But we have a couple weeks here. We're going to be getting Bader and Severino back very soon, so that's a positive. But as always, my friends, I'd love to hear your perspectives below. And make sure to like and subscribe and drop a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify if you are so kind. We appreciate that very much. Let's get a dub tonight, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.